So, today I'm taking you on an adventure through an elegant forest. This will be an evolution over months, and we are in step 1, the build. I got this 7-gallon acrylic aquarium, and I was going to do an aquascape, but I also had this really sick log, so I decided to do a hardscape forest. I started off by cutting the screen to the false bottom. Now, I've had this screen laying around for years now. I've been using it. I got it at Lowe's. It's just a plain white screen that people use for windows. So don't get all crazy about your screens. And the cut went well at first, until I picked it up and looked at it, and I was like, oh man, I made a mistake. I'm a little embarrassed, to be honest with you. But I poured my false bottom balls in, and I angled them towards the back. Everything going hanky-panky as always. But when I put the screen in, I was like, oh man, it doesn't line up. It's bigger, which is what I like. I like to have the sides overlap, but you'll see on the right side, I had to cut a new piece in. But I put the dirt in the corners. That way it makes it easier for me to see. Most of it was okay. And then I got to that right side again. I was like, I gotta patch it in. So I cut a new piece and I patched it in. As you'll see, I mean, you can't see my face, but I'm pretty annoyed. This is the most tedious part. Once you get you have to have a false bottom that is ironclad. You don't want dirt falling in there. So I took my time and I fixed it. And then I finished filling it up. The soil I'm using is an ABG mix, but I added in some orchid bark, perlite, and worm castings. A standard ABG mix will probably be fine, but I've noticed that the plants grow better in a mix that's chunkier. So I started using that. It drains better, and the worm castings are a great fertilizer, so I've just been using that. And here's my log, as promised. It looks like a giant tree that died, but left a cool cave behind. I love it. I love caves. This is probably the coolest piece of wood I've ever used in my mind. Once I got it in, I had to fill up around the edges again and build the back up more. And then I had, again, my cool blue stone. And I know it's not called blue stone, but I'm going to call it blue stone forever because it's blue. I want you to notice that I'm filling in the gaps. Every time I add something, I add dirt around it because it makes it look more natural. That's a lesson it took me a while to learn. I would usually just plant stuff in there and it just wouldn't look right. You would watch guys like on YouTube and you'd be like, man, why does theirs look better than mine? It's because of that. If you look at the dirt and how it just builds up around it, that makes it look so much more natural. Now, adding the plants was pretty cool. I haven't really used tweezers a lot, but I started using them. It's just easier because my hands are bigger. So it's a little bit of a learning curve there though, because just taking tweezers and planting something in the dirt is not as easy as you would think. It took me forever to do that first plant. I probably cut out 2.5 minutes of that first plant. But the back one was a little bit easier. That one I just put in and added dirt around it. Another vital but very small detail is this paintbrush. I started using this paintbrush to brush off the rocks, the stone, or the logs, and even the dirt. And it just makes a huge difference. These little details can go a long way in making your scape look more natural. I mean, I might have got a little carried away with the brush because it's just cool, but you can't blame me, right? I mean, it's fun. Once it was time to moss, I mean, you all must agree, and I would like to see in the comments, that moss and ferns are the best part of any scape. Even in the wild, walking in the woods, moss and ferns are the best part of the wild. And the cool thing about ferns and moss, really, but especially ferns, are they're so easy. I mean, that fern was half dead when I put it in, and this is 2 days later, I'm recording this, and it's already perked up. And I think you might have missed it, but I sprayed everything down halfway through, just to keep everything wet and starting to get healthy again. And then I started adding the little details. So a little bit extra twigs, make it look like you're walking through the forest, and you got some dead branches and stuff. Again, this is my favorite part. I mean, adding these twigs and then adding the leaf litter after and making it like come together as like a real forest is the most rewarding part of these things. I'm actually starting to wonder if I have a complex. Like, why do I like to build miniature things? I mean, is miniature things, like, is that some psychological disorder that I should know about? Your guess is as good as mine on that one. But once the rest of the hardscape was in, I went back to town with some moss, and that's when it really started to pop. Oh, it looks like I have a creeping fig in my pocket, and I did have a creeping fig in my pocket. And I forgot about it until that moment. I was like, oh man, I better get this in here. Creeping fig is one of the coolest things too, because it'll grow fast, and it's virtually almost, you can't kill it. You just can't kill it. And here's the moss I was talking about. This moss is my favorite. I actually forget what it's called. So if you know what it is, post it in the notes for me. Again, my name is Eclectic Beginner for a reason. I should know that. I will get that for next time, or I'll post it in the comments later. But it's starting to come together here. So the creeping fig should start creeping down towards the cave. And because of my obsession with threes, I had to put another little rock there. So I have 3 rocks, I have 3 big plants, and then I have 3 shades of moss, if you include the creeping fig as like a ground cover. I just have to do things in threes. I think it looks better. I think it looks natural for some reason. I don't know if there's a law of 3 out there, but I highly advise it. And then I threw some little stones, again, in threes. So now in between those 2 rocks, there's 3. And then on the left, there's 2, but behind it, I threw another little stick. So that would be 3. And then I filled it up with dirt. Because again, you want it to look like it's been there for a while. And then after looking at it, it still needed more moss. So I started piling moss up around the hardscape. That right side looked a little blank, so I put a low plant in there because the viewing area is going to be from kind of like the front right corner. So I didn't want a plant that's going to grow too high, and I didn't want to obscure the rocks either. So I thought that low grass was going to work well. On the flip side, I have tall plants that are going to grow behind the tree. I also added an epiphytic fern there, and that's just going to slowly spread along the ground. And then it was time to add the leaf litter. Once you're adding leaf litter, you're pretty much done. Everything else after this is just attention to detail, love of the game here. You know, you look at it every day and you might see something you want to add. Like right there, I looked at it and I wanted to add another creeper, so I added a small creeper there. And then looking at it from ground level, because I want to get down and pretend like I'm an animal, I see there's my cave, I got all my plants, my creeper. I think I'm happy. I think I'm pretty happy here. You can't overthink these things. If you're happy and you're looking at it, it's a pretty good build. And to be honest, I wasn't happy at first. I was worried. I was like, man, this is only my second real YouTube video, and it kind of looks bad. I was second guessing myself, but then by the end, I was really happy, and I still am. Now I'm looking at it 2 days later, and I love it. Okay, it's time to add some life. Those are my springtails. They are bursting. I got this cool new camera. You can actually see them moving around clearly. Oh man, I love the springtails in there. I'm probably gonna add some isopods later, and maybe even a predator like a centipede. Not the big ones. Not the big ones. They scare me. I don't want to have a huge lid on it, but definitely gonna add a small centipede. So I had to put a night view in here, and when it's dark out with that light on, it looks sick. Sick. I love it. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you.